Well, the NHL draft is in the books, but it may have been one of the most bizarre weeks of offseason hockey that we've ever seen. We got franchise-altering trades, controversial hirings, and then the draft itself. So let's take a look at the real winners and losers of NHL Draft Week and what it means going into next season. Starting with our first and perhaps our biggest winner, it is the San Jose Sharks. San Jose was really the winner of this day, the second that they won the second overall pick of the draft lottery. They get Ivar Stenberg and instantly draft another winger who will likely step right into the lineup and be immediate help for Macklin Celebrini. That's incredible because Celebrini is already the next generation's Crosby, so you add Stenberg in the mix, who also has a great offensive upside and a really good defensive element to his game. The Sharks not only have top offensive talent, but they have offensive talents that can check, which is extremely important in the NHL playoffs. Then they make things even better when they take advantage of Ottawa trying to replace Brady Tkachuk. They send them William Eklund in exchange for the 9th overall pick. There's more to it, but that's the base of it. So who fell into their lap at the 9th spot? That is the big right shot defenseman, Keaton Verhoff. At times, people had him as the best defender, but after going to the NCAA and adjusting to that type of style, he did slip a little bit, and he fell right into Mike Greer's hands, and they took advantage. Not to mention, they also drafted another potential solid right-handed defenseman in Ryan Lynn at the 21st spot, and in the last few days, San Jose has completely rebuilt the right side of their defense, as well as grabbing Michael Kesselring from Buffalo. With every passing day and how this team just keeps stacking young and elite talent, the Sharks Cup prophecy gets closer and closer to reality, and the Sharks showed up to this draft and took everyone's lunch money. Next on the winners list is the Toronto Maple Leafs. Hard not to have them as winners when they get the first overall pick after only having an 8.5% chance. We just did a video on McKenna and how exactly his game will fit on the current iteration of the Toronto Maple Leafs, but the Leafs are getting a dynamic winger here who will likely step right into their lineup and have an impact. Of course, there's a lot of factors with the pressure and expectations. You got Bieber up there going to go draft him. Everyone is looking to an 18-year-old to play with Austin Matthews, and all eyes are on him. Time will tell how good McKenna will become, but there are going to be setbacks, a lot of highs and lows in this market. But considering what he's gone through in his junior career, he's as prepared as anyone can be to step into this type of market. The Leafs and their fans have been begging for a superstar that isn't afraid of the bright lights, and McKenna may just be that guy. Now, aside from that, the Leafs also had a pretty good draft as well. They got good value with their third-round pick defensemen and Alexander Bilecki and Ethan McKenzie. GM John Chayka has been very specific since day one about the type of defenseman he wants on this team. He wants them to be mobile and efficient when transporting the puck, and these picks, along with others, are a reflection of that. They also got $22 million in cap space going into free agency. They're rumored to be cooking something big as well, so I don't think the Leafs are done yet making a big push. They are going to need it too, because the next winner is arguably the biggest winner of the offseason so far, and that is the Florida Panthers. The Panthers didn't really do their damage at the draft itself, but instead it was before landing Brady Tkachuk. Now you look at that top 9 of Florida, and you would consider yourself lucky if you make it out of the game healthy. It is a murderer's row of rats, pests, and animals between the Tkachuks, Marchand, Bennett. No chin is safe. I do also like the addition of Garnet Hathaway, as he's just another bottom 6 player that will play to the identity of the Florida Panthers. One slight issue could be speed for this team. Now the Tkachuks, they aren't exactly burners. If you watched a race between them and Mark Stone, you'd fall asleep before it finished. Their blue line is also solid, but they never really had tremendous foot speed because their overall team structure from all 5 guys on the ice is what really grinded teams down and frustrated their opponents. Last year was a write-off with all the injuries and going to 3 straight Stanley Cup finals. This year, they come back fully healthy. But the other question is still goaltending. Officer Bobrovsky is a wild card right now. The officer wants to get paid, but he had a miserable year last season. He's 37, and so Florida will have to do some work in the crease. But so far, the Panthers seem ready to come back and compete for a Stanley Cup. Now, the next big winner are the hosts themselves of the draft, and that is the Buffalo Sabres. When Byram let them know that he wasn't going to sign an extension because he wanted to be the number one guy, Buffalo said, screw it, we're moving on, and they got a haul for him, getting the 4th overall pick from Chicago, and then immediately trading for Olen Zellweger from the Ducks to fill in for Byram as the replacement. Now, Zellweger is an offensive D-man similar to Byram. He's smaller, but in that motion system that really empowers Buffalo's defense, he could be a really good fit to step right in and make an impact. They also picked up Daxton Rudolph with the 4th overall pick, who has the upside to be a number 1 D-man in this league. As a right-handed defenseman, he can be an elite transition defender who perfectly complements both their system and Rasmus Dahlin in a few years' time, or maybe even sooner. So the Sabres have some tidy work and asset management and get a pick in the top 5 in the process, which has them as a winner in this draft. Now, a couple honorable mentions before our last one. Winnipeg getting Viggo Bork at 8 could be a steal in a few years. Because he's smaller, listed at 5'9", there was some reservations, but Viggo Bork's game is built on elite hockey IQ, relentless competitiveness, and a strong two-way game. Despite his size, he's consistently winning puck battles and can be trusted in almost every situation. There's a little bit of Nick Suzuki in him, and if he projects to be anything close, Winnipeg will take it. Calgary also did some neat work too, drafting Carson Karl's buddy. Literally didn't even show up to the draft because he had to do work on the farm. If that ain't an Alberta player, I don't know what is. They get a potential number 1 D-man, and overall the Flames are building an army of dangerous defensemen between him, Parekh, and Nemec. I'm also going to throw the defending cup champs in there as well in the Carolina Hurricanes. GM Eric Tulsky was able to turn his 1st-round pick at 31 into 4 picks, 2 in the 2nd round, 3rd-round pick, and a 4th-round pick, which is pretty good asset management, but they also traded for the rights of John Carlson. Probably the most coveted right shot D who is planning on hitting the market. They give up a pick and a prospect for his rights to try and sign him before free agency. Remember, they won this cup with $11 million in cap space, and if they're able to lock in John Carlson, it makes the Stanley Cup champs even better today. Now, lastly, let's throw in the Washington Capitals for this week. Washington brought in both Jordan Kyrou and Alexander Tuch, both top 6 wingers who can put the puck in the net and bring a ton of speed into the Caps lineup. That is something that they've been missing, especially with Ovi in their top 6. It's entirely possible that we may have witnessed Ovechkin's last game in the NHL, but maybe he sees these moves and says, screw it, let's ride for one more season. 5-on-5, his impact is now limited. He's got the beer league boots now, with it being a chore for him to drive play with any sort of pace, but he still did 2 things that indicate that old man Ovi has some juice. First, he played all 82 games because Rush Machine never breaks, and second, he still scored 32 goals last season. The man can still flat out rip the puck. I like the Caps to bounce back next year, but with $11 million in cap space as well, I like to see him get a little bit more dynamic in the middle of the ice. They need someone in the middle outside of Strome and Dubois to help them get to that next level, but they're on good track so far. Next in the mushy middle is the St. Louis Blues. The Blues are kind of in no man's land after last season. They missed the playoffs. They were announced to be trading both Robert Thomas and Colton Parayko at one point, but they decided, nah, we're going to keep him for now. And then they get Mason McTavish. McTavish is a 23-year-old center who is a former 3rd overall pick who has a lot of upside still in his game, but he has been healthy scratched at times last year, both in the regular season and in the playoffs. He hasn't found that consistency that the Ducks were looking for. So the Blues, they take him, they build around him and Thomas down the middle, but still, it seems like a roster that is in the middle of a retool. They still have strong pieces on that team, but they're going to need to be more active if they want to return to the playoffs next season. Now, perhaps the kings of this category of the mushy middle are the Seattle Kraken. This week was not great for Seattle at all. It was leaked that there was a potential deal done to bring Jason Robertson to the Kraken for $15 million a year. But Robertson says, Seattle, no way. I'm not going. That got leaked out, and that is not good for the organization. Seattle has been starved for a legitimate superstar, and when they finally get a chance to get one, he turns it down right away despite getting a massive payday. Now, there's a few reasons why Seattle has trouble attracting talent. There's a millionaire's tax coming into effect there. Their whole team is also basically filled with middle 6 forwards, and they have been the living embodiment of the mushy middle the last few years, being not good enough to make the playoffs and not bad enough to get a top pick. And so why they're not in the complete loser category is because Chase Reed fell into their lap at 7th overall. Reed has the potential to turn into a top offensive defenseman in this league. Of course, there's a lot that goes into it. He's still just a kid. It's all projections, but Seattle does finally get a young defenseman for the future that can make things seem more promising than they currently do. That is, of course, if he doesn't pull a Lindros and say, trade my rights, because there's no way I'm playing in Seattle. But in all likelihood, that doesn't happen, and they can build around him on the back end. After all this, it's still more likely than not that Seattle's probably going to finish 10th in the Western Conference next season and be right back in the same spot. And so that leads us to the losers of this week, and kicking us off here is the Ottawa Senators. Listen, anytime you lose your captain in Brady Tkachuk, it is a kick in the cojones, and even though the return is nice with 3 first-round picks, Ottawa still wants to contend and make the playoffs, so not getting a roster player back is indeed tough. Now, they did get William Eklund, who's a good young winger, who's a playmaker first, and he can help Ottawa right now, but he alone will absolutely not fill that void of Brady Tkachuk. They may honestly never fill that void, and Ottawa fans probably don't care because Brady is on the hit list right now. But not making any additional moves at the draft means that their lineup is looking thin so far. But they did get Andre Burakovsky for a 6th-round pick, and I think worst case scenario for Ottawa is this ends up turning out like the Marner situation. What I mean by that is that the Leafs used the cap space last year to get 3 players to try to fill the void of Mitch Marner. That didn't work out at all. Sens, they're going to have lots of moves, and as of right now, it's nothing truly impactful, but we're going to see what they do in free agency, what types of moves that they can pull off. There is still a whole summer left and potential offer sheets that could happen. They've been rumored to be on Jason Robertson, but who knows if Robertson wants to come to Ottawa. There is a lot of work for the Sens to do because Tkachuk leaving could set them back years if they don't fill those holes properly. Now, moving on to the next loser, that is the Chicago Blackhawks. This was a huge trade at the beginning of the draft week as the Blackhawks traded the 4th overall pick to Buffalo for Bowen Byram. There was more to the deal going both ways, but that was the big piece. And let's start with the upside for Chicago. Byram believes he can be a #1 defenseman. For the Sabres, he was a solid top 4 guy who was really good on offense for Buffalo, especially because he fit their motion system. The Sabres are a team that love to have their defense activate and play off the rush. They have a sense of fluidity in the offensive zone as well to get off the blue line and create almost a positionless style of offense. It's simple. The Blackhawks needed a defenseman that they can get right now and help Connor Bedard because he's been on an island ever since he's arrived there. Byram will go there and help them immediately, but being their #1 guy does come with some risks. He's going to be getting #1 minutes against the best players in the world. His offensive intuition can leave him vulnerable at times defensively, and on Chicago, that could get exposed. Offensively as well, the Blackhawks are nowhere close to the quality and caliber of the Sabres, so counting on Byram to deploy that same offensive output is a gamble as well. I do think this is a move that they needed to make to get Bedard some immediate help, but giving up the 4th overall pick is a steep price, especially with the quality of defenders at the top of this year's draft. Chicago still has a whole offseason to work with and lots of cap space, but I swear to God, if they come back with another Mickey Mouse-ass forward group that leaves Bedard on an island yet again, I'm sending out the flare signals to hashtag save Bedard and get that movement started. Now next on the loser category is the Edmonton Oilers. For Edmonton, it's what happened before the draft that has absolutely everyone baffled at the decision making, and that is officially hiring Mike Babcock to be the head coach. Now since then, McDavid has come out and said that they fully support this decision, saying that this is what they want. They want someone who's going to push him and Leon Draisaitl, and it is clear that McDavid and the Oilers leadership group want to try something different in an attempt to win a Stanley Cup. No more playing 28 to 30 minutes a night trying to hero the Oilers to a win. They want Babcock to come in and implement the culture where every player is crucial to their success. But this is a massive risk, especially because the Oilers lineup itself is not good enough to contend. Their offensive depth needs work, and their goaltending still remains a big problem. They got this summer to fix all of it, but if it blows up in Edmonton's face next season, McDavid's future as an Oiler is essentially non-existent. I wouldn't be surprised if Babcock really helped Edmonton tactically and with their execution because he's still a good coach, but it's the rest of the stuff that has set him back, and with today's modern athletes, it likely will not fly. Edmonton's got a lot of work to do this offseason, but they're starting this whole thing behind the 8 ball based on reputation alone. Now, we're going to end this one on a wild card, and that is going to be the Vancouver Canucks. I'm not sure what to make of Vancouver drafting Caleb Malhotra when Manny Malhotra is the new coach there. In my opinion, they made the right pick. Caleb Malhotra was the best player available. He's the best center in this draft. But what is the dynamic between him and his dad being the coach? For an organization that has been surrounded by drama for the last couple of years, this opens the door for a whole bunch of new narratives and storylines. Now, the thing is, with NHL coaches, their lifespan is usually around 2.5 years. So it is very likely that Caleb Malhotra outlasts Manny Malhotra in that organization. It's just how it is. And that's why for the long-term vision of the organization, it is the right pick, because Caleb is going to be there for a long, long time if things go right. But like I said, this kind of decision opens up the door for all kinds of possibilities. If Manny Malhotra gets fired and it's ugly on the way out, how does Caleb feel about the organization and everything around it? It could be drama in Vancouver, but that is something that they're used to. Either way, I still think Caleb Malhotra is a fantastic player and he'll do very well in Vancouver for a long time. So who are your biggest winners and losers of the NHL draft and offseason so far? Who surprised you? Who pissed you off? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm Anthony. I do all the breakdowns for the channel. We got a ton of content coming up with the NHL offseason. It has been absolutely insane so far. So if you want to stay up to date on all things NHL and dive deeper into the biggest moves, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so that you don't miss a single thing.